Hello everyone, welcome to Yusuf's show. Today I'm going to be analyzing Gladwell's episode featuring Carlos and Eric Eisner. I'm going to be commenting on the podcast structure, the integration of music, and of course the different rhetorical strategies which have all contributed to the great effectiveness of the episode. Today we also have a special young guest coming on the show, so stay with us and let's get right into it. Gladwell's episode is so powerful, it reaches all the senses. Carlos's story is truly touching, eye-opening, and heartbreaking. His difficult journey goes to show how determined and fortunate, poor but exceptionally intelligent students must be to achieve success in their lives. The podcast was structured extremely well, in a way which keeps the listener on their toes throughout the entire episode. Suspense was built up perfectly, and music was integrated at the perfect times, adding to the tone of the speakers and creating a unique mood for the audience. Gladwell, the host, uses very good structure with many effective techniques as the episode progresses so that he can add to the listener's experience and interest. One of his best tricks is ensuring that new introductions are well visualized. When Gladwell first introduced Carlos, for example, he went on to discuss his normal physical appearance, but his extraordinary academic capabilities, and much more advanced mentality for his age. Carlos was described as a thoughtful, deliberate, and guarded person, which is more unusual for a teenager. Gladwell's detailed explanation effectively captured the listener's attention and helps them visualize Carlos's appearance and character. Additionally, Gladwell ensures that every response from his interviewee Carlos is further explained and clarified by himself. The way he explains allows the audience to understand what's really behind Carlos's words. Without this, the conversation would sound rather boring, but Gladwell manages to point out the important details and almost decipher what Carlos says for the listener. A more subtle but crucial technique used by Gladwell is the boldness in his voice. At certain times during the podcast, he often slows down or raises his voice, speaking from the heart. This is a very effective way of communication because it places strong emphasis on certain points and adds a more pronounced effect to his speech. Now, to identify the main rhetorical strategies, I would like to start with the use of pathos, where Gladwell has appealed to emotion in many parts of the episode. The most important of which was when Carlos was talking about himself in the 8th grade. Carlos's shaky voice hit when he said, "I was in the 8th grade, foster care, I forgot." And as Gladwell said, Carlos said the word foster care really quickly under his breath. That was an emotional piece in the episode. As Carlos mentioned, it was an emotional toll on me. Here, using the pathos strategy definitely would leave the listeners so emotional as well, as the words, the shaking voice, the comments from Gladwell all serve to convey the touching message clearly to the listeners. Next, there is certainly a great appeal to credibility in the podcast, highlighting the use of ethos thanks to the presence of Eric Eisner. Eisner is a very well-known entertainment lawyer, film producer, and practically a celebrity, so the fact that he plays such an important role in Carlos's story of success really builds onto the entire episode's reliability and credibility. Without Eisner's financial and emotional support, Carlos wouldn't have been able to find a better education, bear with the harsh troubles he faced, and continue establishing his geniusness. The use of logos was very clear in the episode, where Gladwell used logic and reasoning to convey the idea to the listeners with great effectiveness. By using inductive reasoning, Gladwell moved from a specific story to a general conclusion. He moved from Carlos's particular story of his own sufferings to a general conclusion about all the promising kids out there who are left behind getting deprived of second chances because they were born into needy families or poor neighborhoods. Finally, Gladwell showcased an even more generalized issue, which is the capitalization of talent in the US, where unfortunately it's almost impossible for many gifted but poor children to make it up the ladder without an advocate like Einstein, as Gladwell has said. Okay, so we actually have a special guest here with us today. His name is Mark and he's in grade 5 and he enjoyed the Gladwell podcast with me. So I'm going to be asking him a few questions. First of all, how are you doing, Mark, today?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for asking.
That's awesome. So the first question is, what do you think of Carlos's story?
Well, I really like the story of Carlos, and I like that he didn't give up till the end.
I agree with you. My next question, what was the most touching part of the story for you?
Well, I felt really sad when he went to the foster home away from his mother. I know that was not easy.
That's true, that wouldn't be easy for anyone. Thank you for joining me today, Mark. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Music in this podcast played a very important role, starting from the beginning of the episode. When Gladwell was introducing the topic, music increased gradually, and that choice of gradual variation in music right in the beginning serves to get the listeners ready to listen carefully, increases their attention, and arouses their curiosity. Music started after when Gladwell was shedding light on America's lack of attention to the poor families in society with irony. At minute 248, Gladwell said with music in the background, "This is what civilized societies are supposed to do, to provide opportunities to people to make the most of their ability." Music here actually serves to evoke different thoughts and challenging ideas that the listeners will confirm a little later. Music popped up again right after talking about the critical topic behind Carlos's story, which is capitalization of talent. At the minute 438, Gladwell said that Carlos's story is a lot more complicated than it seems, and right after what he said, music popped in to actually arouse listeners' suspense about what kind of complication or issue would be further discussed. Moreover, to emphasize his main idea behind Carlos's story, Gladwell has asked the question, what is the capitalization rate in Linux if you have to cross the gang line to get to high school? After throwing that question to the listeners, music started to pop up at the minute 1738. And here, music actually serves to evoke the thoughts of the listeners and reinforce the main idea behind Carlos's story. Finally, the music was really touching at minute 29, where Gladwell was trying to highlight the heroic part of Carlos, or anyone who went through similar circumstances, by describing how these kids know how to find their way out of their problems as they try to put their bad experiences aside and try to find a way out from their sufferings. Music in that part, which is at the end of the episode, serves to stimulate the emotions of the listeners and touch their feelings and leave them in a very emotional mood, as I honestly cried at the end of the episode, and I am sure that music played a very crucial role in this. Finally, all the strategies used, together with the structure and the music, helped that episode be extremely successful and effective in conveying the message clearly and in a very touching way. Thanks, Gladwell, for an amazing episode, and thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next week. You have been listening to The Yusuf Show. For more information, please visit www.theyusufshow.com. The podcast is entirely produced and edited by Yusuf Bashar. All music is from StereoFloat Sunset Valley album and Aurora Vibes. Thank you.